Hi, it's Sarah, and in this video I'm going to be talking about some tips and things that worked for me that I can share with you in aiding my recovery after a miscarriage. So firstly, let me say, if you are watching this video, then I'm so sorry for your loss. I wish no one had to watch this video, but I thought it might be useful to just share some things that work for me. Of course, the whole subject of baby loss and miscarriage is such a wide-ranging and complex situation, and so different for each one of us, that there's no like one-size-all-fits tips I can give. I think the journey's so unique to each and every one of us. The main thing I can say for everybody is literally just to give yourself the time and the space to grieve your loss. Something I will mention at the beginning as well is that I found even like the most well-intentioned people can come out with things that kind of, comments that kind of sting. So I think an example is, especially if you were in the earlier weeks of pregnancy, you may find that some people come out with certain comments like, oh, at least you weren't further along and things like that, and it's just not helpful and it does sting. So that's something to be aware of, and I'm going to be talking a bit more about that in some of the tips I've got further in this video. So let's jump in and look at some of the tips I've got to share with you about ways we can heal and move forwards after a loss. So firstly, I wanted to talk about the thing that is closest to my heart and really helped me heal, not just on a physical level as well, but also mentally and emotionally, I think. So herbs and oils. So as of the point of recording this video, I'm not a qualified medical herbalist yet, but I do recommend seeing one to support you through your own personal healing journey, really, because herbs work on like many different levels, not just the physical but also the emotional, mental, spiritual bodies. And it's not like Western medicine where you have X issue, so then you're given X remedy to solve that issue. Having said that, there are some herbs that are really useful for the situation of miscarriage and loss, and ones that I personally found useful for me were taking an infusion of yarrow. So I took an infusion of yarrow sort of in the days as soon, but I had to order some in, so as soon as I got it, a day or two after my miscarriage, I started taking an infusion of that, and that was to help with the heavy bleeding and also to help start to strengthen and heal the uterus and to help those muscles recover for the future as well. And for similar reasons, I also had infusions of raspberry leaf tea. So this is quite something you can get quite commonly in tea bag format already. A lot of women take it in the later stages of pregnancy and postpartum, and it can really help again with like toning the uterus and helping to shrink back down. I also tried lemon balm tea, which is a really kind of gentle and soothing drink, and it's actually really pleasant to drink as well. If you're like looking at what you're eating, again I'm going to mention that in a minute, but using sort of gentle, nutritious foods, if you have like me, like IBS, where nervousness, worry, stress sets off problems with your digestion, then lemon balm's actually a really useful one to have that gentle calming effect on your whole system. In terms of essential oils, of course, you can use them in a bath and a diffuser and an oil burner, and even just sniffing them, sniffing the bottles can have an effect. The scent has an effect on you. So in terms of what oils to use, I'd say, because this is a time where you really need to be really self-compassionate and gentle, then my recommendation would be to choose the oils that sing to you the most, whichever you're drawn to, whichever you love, whichever you feel uplift you maybe and comfort you. General all-rounders are probably things like lavender and rose are quite comforting and healing, especially at this time. So I thought I'd also look as well at things like mindset, mental and emotional health, but this is such a massive area to cover So I'm just going to share some things underneath that umbrella term that worked for me, rather than try and cover everything because it would just take too long. But again, if you feel in this area that you are struggling, then please do reach out and don't suffer in silence. So my first tip is to treat yourself and your body as you would in postpartum period. So obviously it's not the same and it can be difficult to think about it in that way, but your body has been through a lot. And I found that treating myself in a similar way to how I did in previous postpartum periods. So that would be things like, having really comforting, nutritious, easy to digest foods, and very gentle yoga and stretching, no strenuous exercise yet, and a lot of space for resting. Those were things that helped me to heal. And something actually I found with my own first postpartum period was, because of that situation, was having to deal with a lot of guilt and blame. And obviously these are emotions that can definitely and most likely come up during the period after a loss or miscarriage. And of course someone can tell you like a billion times that it wasn't your fault, but it's getting to that point where you believe it yourself, and kind of being mindful of those thoughts that can come up, that just often pop up almost unconsciously, thoughts such as it was all my fault, and if I'd done this differently, or I'd not lifted this, or I'd not eaten that, it's those unhelpful thoughts that you kind of, somewhere deep down, it's bullshit, but your brain's still trying to have a go at you. So just being mindful of those thoughts and having, even if you have something written down that you can replace that thought with when it comes in. Next tip is find a safe place to share. So something I found really healing when I spoke up about my own miscarriage was that many other women came forward and shared their stories as well. And honestly, at the time, I was surprised how many women had, that I knew personally had suffered a loss or lost it. So it can be really healing to, have somebody to open up to and talk about what's happened with. One thing I would say is be mindful of who you share your story with. So other people do have their own assumptions, opinions and baggage and wounds. And as I mentioned at the beginning, sometimes sharing with the wrong person can end up stinging when the comments come your way, the unwanted comments. So don't suffer alone, but try and find that safe space and safe ear. And you might find that wasn't where you thought it was through experience, but there will always be places. It may work better for you if you, talk to somebody over the phone that you don't know at all. Sometimes a stranger, can be someone that you can open up into that safe space with more. But just do what feels right for you and use discernment too. And something else I found useful was the use of ritual. Ritual has been used, over all cultures and traditions over time, as part of transitions, and this is a transition of sorts in life. So it doesn't have to be an elaborate ritual. If you are familiar with doing rituals in other parts of your life, then you might want to do something elaborate. But for me, it was just something simple, like lighting a candle, and it was the same little candle that I lit every evening, or even just in the ritual of taking some time, carving a little bit of time out to meditate or be present with your feelings. If you're going to do something like meditation, which I really recommend, if you've got access to the Headspace app, there's loads of different meditation courses on that app, and there's one for grief. So if you have that app, then you might find that course particularly useful. And I'll just round off with saying other things that I found useful at the time, which are not only useful for the situation of losing a baby, but also for any of really life's challenges and twists and turns, are getting outside and connecting with nature. For me, it's working with my herbs and working with my plants, so I found that very healing. Also, taking some time to look for little pockets of things in life that felt a bit lighter. So, for example, something that would make me laugh, and also taking life just at a slower and a gentler pace. So I hope these tips have been helpful for you. Like I say, unfortunately there's no one size fits all information I can give, but I can just share things that helped me personally, and hopefully could help you too. If you've got any more tips and things you want to share, then please leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you for the next video or on Instagram.